Let's go, LSU fans. It's time to get into the most important transfer portal needs. The window is coming up here in less than a month, and it's time for us to organize where LSU really needs to address a roster that could challenge for the college football playoff in the brand new 9-game SEC. I want to say hi everybody that's watching nationwide. Please hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell. It's a glorious Sunday night to be a Tiger fan. And I want to shout out the great Tyler Shuck, friend of the channel, for winning yet another game today for my New Orleans Saints. But I want to start with Sam Levitt at the quarterback position. I understand that we're specifically talking about a player, but it is no question that quarterback is by far the most important position in the game of football, and it's the most important position for LSU. Now, normally for me, in basically every single transfer portal cycle, the single most important position to address is going to be offensive line simply because of numbers and scarcity, right? The offensive line is the position you have the most of on the field compared to any other position group. And it's also the position that has the fewest amount of good players in the portal. But in this instance, I put offensive line behind quarterback because I do think LSU needs to get two quarterbacks. What I want to show you is a good piece right here from Glenn West of 247 Sports, a really good writer for their site. And I want you to take a look at the depth chart of LSU going into the bowl game. And it's pretty shocking to see that the likelihood that any of these quarterbacks that are on LSU's roster next year, that likelihood is very low. You can see Michael Van Buren listed. Emil Picarella is a walk-on. And then, of course, Garrett Nussmeier is going to the NFL. And I doubt Colin Hurley sticks around next year for LSU. So, for me, I feel as if quarterback is the single most important position in the portal. Not because you need to get one. I do think you need to get two. Now, we talked plenty about the Bryce Underwood, I guess you could say, hypotheticals. But for me, I think the list will be like this for Lane Kiffin based on what we know right now in the transfer portal. Number one has to be Trinidad Chambliss. And then number two has to be Sam Levitt for me of Arizona State. Now, there are other quarterbacks that are out there. I know a lot of you like the Bailey kid out of NC State. I love Brandon Washington out of Maryland, but it looks as if he is going to stay there with the Terrapins as they are, rightly or wrongly deciding to keep Mike Loxley around for the next season. At running back, I think they're going to be fine, especially if Quan Lacey comes on over. But if Quan Lacey doesn't come over, I do think it's important for LSU to add a running back out of the portal. We go down position by position. While this isn't the number 2 team for me right now in the portal, I would say it is pretty jarring to see that the wide receiver room for LSU is all over the place when it comes to what could be returning next year. Xavion's gone. Barryon's gone. Chris is gone. Nick, we don't know what he's going to do. Destin Hill, I really don't know what his eligibility is like. He's been in college for forever. He was a part of the Chris Hilton recruiting class. And then, of course, Aaron Anderson is probably gone to the NFL. And then Teron Francis and Philip Wright will return. Do they elect to go in the transfer portal for more immediate playing time? I don't know. But we will see what happens there. So LSU will definitely address wide receiver in the transfer portal. Now, why for me wide receiver isn't really that important is number one, I trust Lane Kiffin when it comes to wide receiver play. He, the portal receivers he brought in to Ole Miss this past season, none of them were guys that were received with some ridiculous fanfare like an Eric Singleton was at Auburn or even a Barryon Brown at LSU. But all of them have basically produced, right? 2 has been good. 11's been good. So I think LSU will be fine at the wide receiver position because I trust Lane Kiffin, even if it's a wide receiver that's someone that we don't think has done anything previous to getting to LSU or Ole Miss. Lane can make a lot happen at that position. And then to me, more than even tight end, I do think LSU needs to get a blocking tight end, a guy that is meat and potatoes, no nonsense, can give us an extra hat with his hand in the dirt in the run game. We just didn't have that guy this year, at Trey Green and Barrow Sharp, which is why I think Donovan Green should have played more. And depending on JD LaFleur's injury status, I would like to see him play a little bit in the bowl game. And now we get to me, the second most important position in the transfer portal for LSU, which is going to be offensive line. I do think there is a gap between LSU's quarterback and offensive line rooms when it comes to transfer portal needs. I think there's a gap between those two positions and every other position for LSU. And obviously, you do get Braylon Moore back, but Josh Thompson's gone. Cone Eccles and Tyree Adams are back. Does Lane want to run it back with those two? I don't know. This is going to be an Eric Walford question as well, the new offensive line coach at LSU. And then, of course, you have Carius Kern coming back compared to Ori Williams. So, does LSU want to run it back with Paul Mabinga, DJ Chester, or Weston Davis? You could see in this rotation that Glenn West has listed here, number 75, number 79, and number 65. These are the three lowest graded pro football focused players in LSU history. All right, these three, along with Barrett Sharp. So you could see, I think from a litmus test, if you're a college football nerd and you're not a fan of LSU at all, what would be very fascinating is if LSU does elect to basically run it back with mostly these offensive linemen. And if it were to work with how badly these offensive linemen have played this year, it would go to show you that the play caller or the offensive mastermind, if you will, which would be obviously Lane Kiffin in this scenario, how important is that head coach and that offensive coordinator? I don't know. It's going to come down to their own evals of the team. All right. So we get to the defensive side of the football, and you guys might disagree with me in the chat. We're going to get to all of your questions here in just a moment. The single position that LSU needs to address in the portal more than any other is safety. I really do think safety is that spot for LSU. The first reason is because AJ Halsey made this defense really work, right? Delane was our best defender. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But you could make a case that Halsey was just, if not as important, if not more important, than Mansour Delane this past season. Man, I love me some AJ Halsey. There were so many touchdown-saving tackles, so many goal line turnovers, the interception versus A&M, the fumble recovery versus Ole Miss. I know we lost both of those games, but it would have been an ass-kicking of epic proportions if we did not have AJ Halsey. And there's quite a few other games. Do we win the Florida game if it weren't for AJ Halsey? That's how good he was in that game. So, for me, I would like, obviously, quite a few defensive ends. I think 2 or 3 it will be needed in the portal, even though there's a lot of guys that you see listed here that will be coming back. Dylan Carpenter's one, Kalaj Cobbins, CJ Jackson, Damian Shanklin. Do they enter the portal? I don't know. Obviously, there's going to be questions as far as who the next defensive tackles coach will be for LSU. Could it be Kyle Williams coming back? I don't know. It looks as if LSU is looking elsewhere at that spot. We'll see what happens. But could it be a guy like Ahmad Bro, who is already in the portal, but he's playing in the bowl game, which I am in favor of. I won't get into that rant again. But LSU, as you can see, we're losing Bernard Gooden. We're probably losing Ahmad Bro. Jacobian Guillory is a year 6 guy. We do return Walter Mathis, who is a very interesting player at 6'2", 285, a true freshman that's played a lot of snaps. Dominic McKinley will also be coming back next year. We then get to linebacker. For me, this is a position that is not as portal needy. I think Devon Keys is a guy that could take another step in year 3. Obviously, Zach Weeks is someone that LSU is really high on as a Weeks brother. But I am leaning towards Whit Weeks coming back next season for LSU. Now, that could be a very dangerous lean. He very well has NFL potential, but I do think Whit Weeks, even though he's out for the bowl game, could be back next season. Okay. Now we get to the star position here. CJ Jim Coyley is someone that I do like a lot. He's played a lot of special teams for LSU. Could he do something actually defensively? I don't know. And then we get to corner. Corner's probably, of all the needs, the least important need for this defensive backfield, even though it's probably the single most important position in modern defenses, having at least one shutdown corner. LSU has that in DJ Pickett. And then obviously PJ Woodland was a fantastic player this year for LSU. A little up and down, obviously, but man, that interception versus Ole Miss was spectacular. And another reason why I don't think corner is as important of a transfer portal need, it's pretty simple. I was shocked, perplexed, blown away, bamboozled, if you will, by how much I enjoyed watching Havon Finney. All right. This weekend was the first time I really sat down and watched him. Obviously, with the way that football works now, you don't want to watch too much film of any high school player because it can all be a waste if they decide to sign elsewhere. I'm prioritizing my time. You get a little bit older, you're just like, man, dude, I don't know. I spent all this time. But man, dude, Havon Finney's good. I would be not shocked at all if he is playing a lot next year for LSU. And then we get to this position here, safety. I just don't trust anyone outside of Deshaun Spears at this position that will be returning next year. I know Joel Rogers is interesting. Jace Thomas blocked that punt. We were told he was going to play a little bit more. I would like to see a lot of Jace Thomas in the bowl game. Maybe some Jacob Bradford, his brother, of course. Got a lot of you angry a few weeks ago, but I would love to see the Catholic High grad get a chance in the bowl game. But Deshaun Spears is going to be a guy that you really need to step up next year. But based on what we've seen from Spears, his style of play isn't like that of A.J. Halsey, right? Spears was mostly a passing down, more of a mold of a true, free safety type. Now, here's the thing. The way modern defenses work, it's a lot of two high safeties where basically both safeties are doing a lot of similar things. So it's not as much of the one high revolution where, you think Legion of Boom, one strong safety in Cam Chancellor, and then you have one deep safety in Earl Thomas. That's how we used to view LSU defenses, right? The best defense of all time. Eric Reed was a deep safety and Brandon Taylor was the enforcer, even though Brandon Taylor can cover really well. And Eric Reed, of course, as we all know, can hit and tackle. So basically, I've always thought the dichotomy between free safety and strong safety are, it's overblown, if you will, but there are slight differences. And I would like to get an all-encompassing dude back there. And a guy, I've been singing his praises for a few weeks now, Derek Williams, right? The transfer from Texas has heavy Louisiana ties. I would love him to be a part of LSU football. So LSU transfer portal needs, you guys have seen them. You've heard them. I want to address all your different comments here at the beginning of the show. I just rambled for 13 minutes. But look, for the rest of the show, you guys know it's a Sunday night. We're going to party it up. The Lane train is still ready to take off, baby. I don't mind if I'm sitting first class if I am the caboose. It doesn't matter. Sign me up for yoga classes, Lane. Let's get to as many comments as you possibly can. As we possibly can. James says, thank you, sir. My man needs a staff position with the L train. I would love that. See, about to sneeze. I think I muted it just in time. Oh, boy. So, obviously, the big thing here is what does DeMarcus Cooley want to do? And for me, I would like, and the reason why safety is a big need for me, I would like to keep things the way they are. All right. And this is where, I would rather be doing this in a film study. One move that I would heavily push the LSU coaching staff to make is to not do what they did this year with Harold Perkins and a linebacker playing that nickel star role. All right, it's called the star. There's plenty of different names you can give it. I would prefer that to be a defensive back. And I do think Cooley could play that role. Or I think Spears could play that role, which is why I just think a true dude at safety can really get this defense going. And, once again, these are just my eyes telling me this. I do think so much of our defensive success this year can mostly be boiled down to Halsey. Like Delane obviously is the best player, but AJ Halsey this season, because it's a weird thing, and I saw someone tweet this out when Delane did not get the Thorpe, that we feel robbed that we're only getting 1 year of both of these guys. And it's weird to talk about the defensive back history at LSU because there are so many guys that played defensive back at LSU and they gave you like elongated periods of time eliteness, right? You got 3 amazing years out of Patrick Peterson. You got at least 2. Like, think of any LSU defensive back legend. You got at least 2 years of their greatness. The problem here is that Delane and Halsey were as good as any of those guys, right? Not quite to the tip top of the Patrick Peterson and Tyrann Mathieu tier, in my opinion, at corner, but Delane's probably right there, like right there with Derek Stingley and Christian Fulton and all those guys. That's how good he was this year. I mean, he was a runner-up to the Thorpe. And the guy who won it had major brand and name recognition, right, in Caleb Downs. And then, of course, you had A.J. Halsey, who, just sit and watch. Like, he was amazing this season. So many plays he made. And so, like, their legacies, I know it's a different conversation, but their legacies, as far as, like, how we're going to remember them is different. Because, of course, we just simply, we have such an affection to the real leaders of DBU, right? The Corey Websters of the world. A lot of these guys are from Louisiana. We're able to truly sink our teeth into their legacies and how much they meant to us. But man, I just can't state how much of how I view this LSU defensive success is thanks to number 13 and number 4. And they're not going to be here next year. So it's going to be hard. And Blake Baker got a raise. And I feel better about corner next year because we have Pickett and we have Woodland coming back. But man, just spin up and get a safety. All right. Whatever you do, that's what you should do. Okay. Get the best safety. We say hi to Murphy. We say hi to Bo Knows, who's out of CEO. Chance wants to know how many LSU guys get drafted this April. That's quite a low. I won't say it's a loaded question because we don't know who's deciding to come back or not. Well, obviously, Delane will get selected. Pyburn, if he's getting a Senior Bowl invite, is probably going to get picked. One guy that I think is really flying under the radar as far as getting selected is Peyton, because the measurables are really nice, and I think he's going to test well. Another thing about Peyton is he bats a lot of balls down at the line of scrimmage. So he's not the most enticing player to watch because, if you want to watch a real pass rusher, you watch Arden Key, you watch Braden Swinson, guys that could truly bend the edge. Peyton is a little bit more, I'm going to hustle. I'm going to get my hands in the passing lane. I'm going to be disruptive in that way. But yeah, and then you go to the offensive side of the football. Obviously, Halsey gets drafted too. I'm just thinking here on Bauer Sharp. Does he get drafted? I don't think so. And I know he was bad this year, but he's really fast for a tight end. And one thing you saw NFL teams do last year is they overdrafted athleticism. And one thing I could see happening from a million miles away is Bauer Sharp not getting invited to the Senior Bowl, not getting invited to the Shrine Bowl. But there is a stat called RAS. We talked about this last year. And it would not shock me if Bauer Sharp's RAS is ridiculous, which is RAS stands for Relative Athletic Score, which basically just weights how good of an athlete you are historically compared to everyone else that played the position. And the one position that most heavily correlates from RAS success to actual success is the tight end position. So I could see Sharp running ridiculously fast, jumping ridiculously high, even though the tape is not great. Uh, I could see him interviewing well. I also think NFL teams will value the positional variety that he's had in his career. He was a quarterback at first, and tight ends tend to develop a little bit slower. So an NFL team could say, "Hey, yeah, he's a year 4, year 5 kind of guy here. So he's an older breakout, if you will, but he has produced, and at the same time, he is this ridiculous athlete. Let's just draft him on the low." I could see it happening. That I could really see it happening now that I've talked this through verbally or publicly, if you will. And then, of course, a wide receiver. Man, I know you can't just go by the success that actually happened on the field in terms of who is actually going to be the best at the next level. We've seen quite a few LSU Tigers that we wouldn't have considered to be elite producers for LSU be elite producers in the NFL. That's Trey Turner. Trey Turner is not someone that we would consider to be one of the best offensive guards at LSU. I mean, how many offensive guards outside of the Hall of Famers have been better than Turner in the NFL? Not many of them. And then, of course, Daniil Hunter is probably the example that everybody points to. But I say all of that, man, I could see an NFL team saying, look, Chris Hilton, we don't give a damn what you did in college. Your speed's ridiculous. You can open at the top. You can open the top off of defense. So much of what we want to do as a team is stretch defenses as far as we can. I don't know. As far as like NFL production and what the new meta is in the NFL, I don't know if any of the wide receivers on LSU's team fits what a lot of the NFL teams are looking for, which is guys that can do a lot of different things well, except one name, which is Avion Thomas. And once again, you can't just look at who our best receiver was this year, which of course was Xavion. But Xavion just does a lot of stuff well. He does a lot of stuff well. And I just think that value is really going to help him out with him potentially getting drafted. I also think he's going to run really well. All right. And he's also a returner. So if I had to choose between drafting a guy like Xavion compared to a guy like Barryon, I'm probably leaning Xavion. But Xavion's also one of those guys where you're like, man, I wish he could play a year under Lane. He kind of fits what Lane would want out of a player. Okay. So hopefully I answered that question okay. Good to see you, Chance. We're going to get to every single question tonight. I want this to be a very question-filled thing. Obviously, we're going to have a bunch of news coming out throughout the week. I want this to be a laid-back live stream. Pop open a cold one. Enjoy my beautiful face on your screen. If you're watching this on a YouTube, if you're watching this on your iPad, if you're watching this on a screen, a projector, you're grilling some burgers in the old wintry backyard of yours, I want you just to enjoy this. Now, next thing I want to get into is, look, I am not a perfect person. And one thing I want to always be as a sports YouTuber is someone to be open about being wrong. And the more I have thought about the 8-game versus the 9-game conference schedule, and I shite you not, I would say 3 out of every 4 of my PHL viewers hate the 9-game conference schedule. And I've had so many of you tell me over and over, Carter, the playoff committee is going to absolutely destroy us for playing a way more difficult schedule. And you're an absolute buffoon to think that a 9-game conference schedule is better. And we caved into the Big Ten. And I'll be honest, after long, arduous reflection, Now that I've seen this very difficult LSU schedule and that we have to end the season on back-to-back road games after playing the two best teams on our schedule in the previous weeks, I have heard all those things, and it's very important to be open to change when it comes to the opinions of myself. So with the 8 versus the 9-game conference schedule, I'm happy to inform you that I have not budged an inch on the issue. Let's go 9-game conference schedule. It's going to be absolutely sweet. Look at the Big Ten. Oh my God, we want to make the playoff. Shut up! Put some big boy pants on. Like Lane Kiffin says, spot the damn ball. I am not scared. I do not live my life scared. I don't. You shouldn't either. So spot it. I'm ready for it. And if you want to keep sending me messages about how wrong I am on this topic, do it. I don't care. Bring it on. Now, would I like a double bye mixed in there? You better believe it. And like I've heard Kirby Smart. You guys know I'm a big Kirby Smart fan. I think he's the best coach in the sport, and there's not a close second right now. And he brought up the 9-game conference schedule after the Georgia shellacking of Alabama in the SEC championship game. And I get it. I have a lot of respect for Kirby. I think Clark Lee winning SEC Coach of the Year over Kirby Smart this year is an absolute sham and mockery of the award. But, you know, I understand. I'm going to keep addressing this. My best friend doing this very YouTube thing is Blake Ruffino. Blake and I, he doesn't like it. My guy Chris Marler, another PHL guest, he doesn't like it. A lot of the SEC folks don't like it, but they don't like it for the wrong reasons. Okay? They listen to guys like Dave Bartu, who I respect, about SEC injury rate, the playoffs, 8 more losses for the league. So what? So what? The SEC motto is it just means more. Well, if that's the case, give me one more conference game. Don't worry about the Big Ten. And one thing I would say to Kirby is with his national championship teams, he played a 10-game P4 schedule. Remember, in 2021, they kicked off versus Oregon. And the other year, they kicked off versus Clemson. And they played Georgia Tech at the end of the year. And some good old-fashioned hate. So if you're good enough, you'll find a damn way. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. And once again, the people that speak out against the 8 versus 9, what they tend to not include is all the benefits of actually playing 9. Once again, take this from outside of your I want what's best for LSU perspective and put on what's best for college football. Well, I'll tell you this. As a fan, you're telling me that I get to play every team in my conference once every 2 years? I can go to every venue in my conference once every 4 years? Sounds great to me. Oh, we get to preserve the SEC's rivalries? Mostly all the rivalries? Yeah. But what about the ones that we used to have, like LSU versus Auburn? Oh, we still get that once every 2 years. What about all the quirkiness of some of these other games? LSU, Mississippi State, we still get that once every 2 years. LSU versus Mississippi State was the longest tenured SEC versus SEC game, I believe, until they ended it a few years ago. I'm so excited about the 9-game conference schedule. Tell them I'm doubling the F down. Don't give a you-know-what. Let's go to Jucky. Do I think Lamar Brown will be a starter as a freshman And what side of the ball do I think he will play? It's a very good question. Okay. And before I answer it, we do have a quick break. Power Hour Network listeners and viewers, you might be consuming this content with that crick in your back that you've been trying to get rid of for so long. Take this as your sign today to book your appointment with LabordTherapy.com. In the Lafayette region, there is no one that you will find that cares more about any different type of pain that you might have than the team at LabordTherapy.com. Book today. Once again, that's LABORDE therapy.com, or you can visit one of their 5 locations all throughout the Lafayette region. All righty, Lamar Brown. He will play a lot as a freshman. You know, when you are in these recruiting battles and you start looking at football through the lens of how much of this young man, how much is NIL taking up compared to the rest of the team, you got to play him a lot. So, you know, he's going to be a defensive lineman. You can make a case he would have been better served for this team on the offensive line, but he wants to play defensive line. And if you're a 5-star, you just basically let him choose what side of the ball they want to play. So, yeah, he's going to play a lot. Now, does he start? I don't know. I don't know if you want him starting because, you know, if he's good, you have him for 3 years. So you would prefer to have him as a rotational player. But how good will he be? I don't know. A lot of that's going to come down to his own personal motivation, if you will. You know, it's interesting when you break down historically the 5-stars that have come to LSU. Almost all of them are good. Like almost all of them you see are good football players. Where half of them cut off their potential earnings and their potential in actual football acumen is on their own accord. And you have some severe cases like Eric Gilbert, and then you have some not so severe cases, but they were, you know, crazy, if you will, and or drama filled is probably the better word. A guy like Elias Ricks, Kayshawn, you know, you have those guys that you see as true freshmen, they are ridiculously good. But what happens? Well, a lot can happen. And I think you look at 2 of our 3 5-stars, they signed huge NIL deals. I say huge. I don't know what these specific numbers are, but we had 2 Nike representatives be 2 of our former 5-star recruits. DJ Pickett, who was our highest rated from last year, and then from 2 classes ago, Straight As Green. And obviously, both of them have been really good players for LSU up to this point. But now, do they look at themselves in the mirror and say, hey, what are the little things I can do to be better? Where can I, as a cerebral player, be better? Where can I, as a teammate, be better? Where can I athletically be better? What can I do better as far as my assignments, the little things? And if those 2 do those things, they become great. They become all-time greats. They become first-round picks, in particular Pickett, who plays a premium position in the NFL. So we'll see. We'll see how that works out. And the same is true with Lamar Brown. You know, the one thing he seems really dead set on playing defensive line. That's good. You don't want him to be thinking, hey, should I be on the offensive side of the football as a tackle? No, if he wants to be a defensive lineman, you want him to be in on being a defensive lineman. Okay. Now, we addressed that a little bit earlier because Cooley's got a decision to make. I do think he's coming back, but it's still, for me, the reason why safety is still the most important, and I don't know if you missed this or not, is that I want Cooley or Spears to be the new nickel for LSU. Okay? Now, Yeah, I like Deuce Gerald's a lot as well. Any update on Elijah Robinson? I don't know. Is he going to Nebraska? I don't know. It was kind of strange, though, how all of this transpired, where, his visit to LSU just happened to overlap with some of the Blake Baker stuff. So I don't know. I really, really, really don't know. Scudero says the Arizona State quarterback reminds him of Jackson Dart. So is Sam Levitt someone that could be a Jackson Dart type of player with Lane? Yeah, sure. Jackson is a thicker player, so it makes him a little bit more valuable in terms of the red zone rushing. But Levitt's also a good runner in his own right. But yeah, I could see that for sure. It's amazing though, like how similar some of the things that Chambliss does is to that of Jackson Dart, from their build to their play style. So there you go. Now, we do this every week. I said we do this every week. We're going to do this every live stream. What did Lane Kiffin tweet today? All right, so Lane Kiffin's latest tweet is his nephew here eating a burger, and they're watching some film in the background that looks to be Catholic High versus is that U High in the background? I don't know. So there you go. How about the LSU basketball team? Matt McMahon, I love you, bro. Okay. Lane Kiffin in LSU attire for the first time. Love to see it. Let's keep it moving. Katie Hill, I do not know who that is, but congrats on the new poodles. Oh, we got a Merry Christmas photo. Man, this is a great backdrop. Okay. Good stuff. Miguel Whitley has emerged as one of the best pass catchers. So Lane tweeting out a potential prospective recruit. I'm guessing I'm guessing that's legal. Number 2 wide receiver in Louisiana was seen representing LSU in the state title game. Shout out to Edna Carr getting it done. But that Archbishop Shaw game will be talked about for the end of eternity. Okay, obviously Lane showing some love to Jackson Dart. Quentin Hale. I thought this was really good right here. I listened to this a little bit earlier from Bryce Brown. Rich Anderson. All right, so there's Lane Kiffin talking about Richard 3 years ago without the Pirate. It was crazy that for so long we got Lane Kiffin versus the Pirate for the Egg Bowl. It'll never get better than that in the Egg Bowl. Okay. JG's the best. John Gordon, who's a motivational speaker. He'll probably speak to LSU athletes, but he's also spoken to Clemson athletes. John, if you need me to open for you, I'll do it, man. The more I love my wife, the more I love my life. Do you agree with this philosophy? Amen to that, bro. I love my hey. Except for when I'm just kidding. We're not airing out dirty laundry. Ha, 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 ha. LSU signee Richard Anderson says after meeting Lane Kiffin, he jumped on the Lane train. But yeah, shout out to Edna Carr winning the whole shebang. I'm going to talk about Lane when it comes to this. We're going to get to a thing that we retweeted a little bit earlier. Here's Lane Kiffin doing a yoga sesh. And he says, "Thanks, Taylor," who's a yoga instructor here. And Taylor, you're welcome to hop on PHL if you want to. Good to see you again. Maybe no more TikTok shots at me. Love you guys. And you get the heart emoji here. Yeah, Taylor, what I didn't see this TikTok. Did you take a shot at Lane? I don't know. Doesn't make any sense. How could you take a shot at Lane, Taylor? Studio 432. I'm guessing this is in Oxford. I don't know. Or somewhere in Mississippi. 34,000 fans were in the dome for St. Aug and Edna Carr. That is ridiculous. 34,000. Like, it doesn't shock me because this was the most hyped state championship game of all time. It was good to see Tyrann Mathieu there. I don't think Leonard Fournette was there. I saw Devon Gottschall was there. There's Richard Anderson. I thought he wore number 90, but he wore number 7 in this game. Playing with what looks to be Monty. Knox right there. Lane Kiffin tweeting out Monsoor Delane. Walter Camp All-American. It's kind of underrated being an All-American because you get a plaque in front of Tiger Stadium. Counts for something. So a picture of Mike. How many Morgan Wallen fans do we have in the chat? Not going to lie. I'm a wedding DJ. I play a lot of Morgan Wallen. Former coach Paul Wiggin has passed away. Look at that haircut. Look at that haircut. BZ, I did not watch that game, unfortunately. Okay, Jackson Holly. LSU in the mix early for 2027. Linebacker Jackson Holly. Derek. So there you go. We're getting into some of these older tweets. True story. I saw Ahmad Hudson, I believe, at the QT in Ruston. I go to that QT all the time. Shout out Josh Pate. But I didn't want to stop him because I was running a little bit behind for an event. So there you go. He wore an Ole Miss towel and some LSU gloves. Also a basketball player like Trades Green. Landry Kiffin's birthday. There you go. Happy birthday, Landry. There's Cookie on the golf course. There's Lane Kiffin signing some Ole Miss memorabilia. Well, that's what it looked. Oh, okay. I think I know what this is. So there was an engagement that happened on the field, and Lane hopped in the photo, and he signed the photo for the couple. Really good stuff. Okay, so this was the ending of the game that everyone's talking about.
Much less one, right?
50 tossed his helmet off. That allowed the play to keep going. So stops the clock. You have a shank punt. There was something about a timeout on the scoreboard that was left on. And the kicker who missed the extra point to tie the game knocked this one through to win the state championship. That's what dreams are made of. There you go, 27. He weighs basically the same as a toothpick, and he knocks that through. And the good old hook and lateral. If you're 26, you just got to toss this football back. He goes out of bounds. And St. Charles wins the state championship. Shout out Nicholas Ayer. Got to get through all these Lane Kiffin tweets that we didn't get to from the last live stream. This is tough work. Dunham High School. So, yeah, this is basically the last one from our last live stream. where on Saturday, or it was Friday night, we did a film study on Elijah Haven. Okay. So there you go. That is this rendition of What Did Lane Tweet Today? Brought to you by nobody. Need a sponsor for the segment. Jones the Kid. What's good? So what's Fournette there? Yeah, please hit that like button, subscribe, ring the bell. 200 of you in here on an off-season Sunday night. That's always a good number. I want to be in the thousands. I want Josh Pate to be like, who the hell is that guy? And I'm wearing a shirt from Nashville. Shout out to the pub. Oh, not at all. I think Aaron is NFL material. I think he would have been drafted last year, to be honest. But I understood him coming back and him thinking that he was going to have an even better season. And he was actually doing fine. He just got hurt. And then, of course, basically it all fell apart here. Now, I want to talk about the Heisman Trophy. So Mendoza won the Heisman Trophy, and, it was a weird dichotomy where he was the first place award winner. And Mendoza is a great speaker. He's respectable for everyone. And he is how you want quarterbacks to act and carry himself. And a lot of people feel it's kind of fake. It's too perfect. I've heard a few people say, hey, it's kind of Russell Wilson-y. I don't feel that way. I really don't. And then, of course, you learn the story about his mother and her health condition. It was all great. I wasn't able to watch the full ceremony. I was DJing a corporate event last night, and I went back and watched his speech. It was great. It was great. It always gets me when I see the parents that are crying during the Heisman speech. Nothing ever is going to beat Joe Burrow's Heisman speech, though. And then obviously number 2 is Jaden Daniels. And Jaden's was great. It might be 1A, 1B. But Diego Pavia. So I don't know if you guys saw this. I won't play it on the screen because it's a bad word. He did bottle service in New York City yesterday, and on the sign, the scantily cladded woman walking around the bar with a sign, and they got the sparklers, and it's going crazy, and we had the ace of spades being passed around, all that stuff, and there was a sign that said F Indiana. That's what it said. Reminds of the word suck. Okay. And it didn't look good. And then Pavia released an Instagram last night, and it said F the voters, family over everything, or whatever. And so right before I went live, he issued a Twitter apology. And I think there's a few things at play here. I do. I think for Diego Pavia, from where he sits, he is very angry at the entire college football world. Before the season, I don't think a lot of people remember this, but Pavia publicly shouted out and called out Tennessee, saying that Nashville is going to be the new home of college football in Tennessee. And so what does he do? He plays his best game of his career versus the Tennessee Volunteers. And, I switched my Heisman vote to Pavia. If I had a Heisman vote, I would have put Pavia number 1. And to me, I do think Pavia's attitude, and I do think Pavia's mother affected his vote. I do. I strongly believe it. Where Mendoza was the antithesis of that. And I do think how both of them carried themselves affected the vote. All right. If you're going to carry yourself with bravado and a mystique surrounding you, you better for damn sure be the Heisman Trophy winner. Okay? And I know the first name that a lot of us are thinking of is Johnny Manziel. But if you remember correctly, that Manziel mystique wasn't really quite around at that first year when he actually won the Heisman Trophy. Okay, because remember, Texas A&M did not make him available to media. This was a procedure that LSU used to do where you could not speak to freshmen as media members. It was against policy. And I remember, I think it was Scott Van Pelt who did the first like real public Manziel interview, and then we learned why A&M was protecting him. And Pavia was just out there. We have more media now than we did then. But you've got to watch how you carry yourself when it comes to the Heisman, because the Heisman itself is an award that does not include in its mission statement, we are giving the award to the best football player. It's a statement that says, and we've discussed this plenty of times, whoever carries themselves in the pursuit of excellence or something like that. It does not say who the best football player is what, and that's what most people vote about. And whether it's Pavia's mother shaking her rear end or anything like that, I do think overall, if you were to crack down Pavia's numbers, they were better than Mendoza's. I think Pavia has a worse supporting cast than Mendoza. I think Pavia played in a tougher conference than Mendoza. And Mendoza was fantastic. He's not a bad winner. But where I think this went awry, and this shocked me, when I was done with what I did last night, and I started diving into the voting, the fact that Mendoza was the fifth highest receiving vote getter in the Heisman Trophy history is insane to me. It's absolutely insane to me. We can all agree that this is probably one of the weaker Heisman Trophy winners, and I hate saying that aloud because anybody that wins a Heisman Trophy is great. But there's a lot of second, third, and maybe in some instances, fourth place Heisman Trophy recipients or Heisman Trophy runner-ups that were better than Fernando Mendoza this past season. And a lot of those come to mind. I think Cam Ward, if he played this year, is probably winning the award. He was a third place getter. And then, of course, I think Ashton Genty runs away with this award if he was playing this year. For instance, Jeremiah Love was the fourth place or the third place Heisman Trophy candidate. And guess what? Johnny Manziel ran for more yards than Jeremiah Love ran for this year. He's a quarterback. So for me, what I think happened is two things. I think most Heisman Trophy voters vote for who is the best player. Okay. But I do think there is a faction of the Heisman Trophy that says, look, we are voting based on what the criteria is for the Heisman Trophy. And if you read the Heisman Trophy mission statement, it does get into the subjective nature of who you are as a person. Okay. I think the most public example of this, because we do some revisionist history when Manziel won the Heisman, as we just discussed, is Cam Newton. So when Cam Newton won the Heisman, we had the laptop controversy. And Cam was a very public, boisterous, confident Heisman Trophy winner. And to this day, that is one of the best athletes I've ever watched in person. And you got to remember, the LSU game was his first real breakout. There he was, running past LSU defenders. I remember it clear as yesterday. And that was the first day it was like, man, this dude is different. And there was voters that were saying, hey, we don't like the way he's carrying himself. There's this or whatever it was. I'm sorry, my nose is running here. But it's insane to me that could play a role in this award when we assume it goes to the best player. Now, here's what's interesting. Okay. And this is one recruiting statement that Lane Kiffin can't say, but theoretically he should say this. This blew my mind. Trinidad Chambliss threw for more yards this season than Fernando Mendoza. I'll repeat it. Trinidad threw for more yards this season than Mendoza in only one fewer game. Okay, so obviously Chambliss took over week 3. He had played some, but he took over week 3. Obviously, Mendoza had the conference championship game. So there's basically a 1-game gap difference. Now, of course, Ole Miss plays at a faster pace in Indiana, and Indiana blew out more teams. But it's just the truth. So if I'm Lane Kiffin, I'm telling every quarterback, hey, come to LSU where there's been 2 Heisman Trophy winners. And oh, yeah, by the way, I myself have had a first-round pick that's done really well in Jackson Dart. And I took a backup D2 guy from week 3 on and threw for more yards than the guy that actually won the Heisman Trophy. And dude, Chambliss is so good. He is so good. So it's a very, very, very fascinating thing when you break down this Heisman Trophy. And obviously it's year by year, but it's uncomfortable to say that aloud. And that's nothing against Mendoza personally. But the 5th highest Heisman Trophy voter ever, winner, whatever, crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me. Yeah, Beasy, his brother getting a DUI or whatever it was, a public intox arrest versus Tennessee was crazy. Do you know how hard you have to be partying to out Tennessee fans? I've said it plenty of times. Obviously, I'm taking LSU out of this because I do think LSU's got the best fans. I'm not the only one that says that, but you take LSU out of it, there's not a fan base that loves their team more than Tennessee. There's just not one. But they come in many different fashions. Okay, there's that the toxic Tennessee fandom is nuts. They are insane. And to be a Vanderbilt fan, and you're the one getting the intox, it's crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. Now, here's what we're going to do. Part of it is that it got so cold in here. Anyway, in the next 10 to 15, I'm going to answer as many questions as we possibly can. If you super chat, we'll keep this thing going. But yeah, I got a little sniffle. Tough day for the NF LSU fans. Was good to see Brian Thomas get back going, but man. Whew. That was tough watching that Joe Burrow game earlier. Ooh. Joey B getting shut out. Don't know what happened. Hey, I knew Jared was going to come in hot. Appreciate you, J Red. Top 3 transfers. What's up, Brissett? Well, I have to answer your question because you're the Reaper. I'm not talking Devontae Smith. Top 3 position groups: quarterback number 1, O-line number 2, safety number 3. Once again, I know that third one is going to be the most controversial. All right, I want to go over one thing. It's in a slightly different sport. I say slightly. It's a very different sport, but there's always these discussions about the LSU women's basketball non-conference schedule and the difficulty of it. Okay, they played Duke at Duke a few weeks ago. All right, I understand these non-conference games could be tough, if you will, because we're blowing out so many teams, but this one made a lot of sense. We're playing Kim Mulkey's Louisiana Tech team, where she has a statue, and we did it in the Smoothie King Center yesterday. And yeah, it's a tough watch when you watch 87-61 being your final score. But the thing that's tough about women's college basketball, and it's always been this way, and you would hope NIL could change this, but it's just a haves and have not sport. There's just not a lot of upsets. It just doesn't happen. You rarely get even an 8-1 upset. A few years ago when we won the whole thing, we played an 8-seeded Miami to go to the Final Four because they beat Indiana at Indiana on their home floor. Okay. It's hard. It's hard to schedule non-conference women's. Really, really, really hard. So yeah, it makes it hard to gauge how good they are until you actually get into conference play. So, do I wish they played more competitive non-conference? Sure. I think we all do. Okay. Then of course you have the men's team. They take care of business. Go 2-0 in the blender. They beat SMU 89-77. And yeah, you got destroyed by Texas Tech. It's a really good team. It's a really, really, really good Texas Tech team. Toppin is the real deal. Okay. So we'll see what happens when it comes to conference play. But right now, it's looking pretty good. The LSU men's basketball team. Let me see. Because we know women's is going to make the tournament. And obviously, my big calling card this year is I just need the men's team to make the freaking tournament. So their next 3 games, Southeastern Louisiana, Prairie View, and Southern Miss. So they should go 3-0 in those games, and LSU will be 12-1 going into conference play. All right, so I'm going to put this schedule up here. We'll get Matthew Bruni on pretty soon. And this is basically how you should look at this. Because we don't have a marquee non-conference win, as you can see, we've not really played anyone. We're 9-1, but there's not like, you look at a school like Arkansas. They have played so many difficult non-conference games. They played Texas Tech. They beat them yesterday. They also played Duke. They lost that game, but they were competitive. Next year, we need to schedule a better non-conference slate than this. We did play Drake and beat them, and that's a team that makes the tournament a lot. But, it would be nice to have some more difficult non-conference games set up. But you get to here. We'll be 12-1. Normally, 21 wins is going to get you into the NCAA tournament. All right. So if you're 12-1, can you get 9 conference wins? A&M's got buckyball going on right now. How good is South Carolina? They were one of the 2 teams that didn't make the tournament last year. Vanderbilt under new direction. Well, they've been under new direction, but you get the point. I miss Jerry Stackhouse, so I loved him being in the conference. Kentucky's not as good as they have been. If we can win that game right there, I mean, I think that's going to be really key for us getting into the tournament. That's a very winnable game for us. Florida looks beatable. I watched him play UConn the other night. The Princeton transfer's not really worked out for them. But you see some of the repeat opponents that we have on our schedule. They're some of the more winnable games, right? South Carolina, obviously, is winnable. You can go 2-0 there. Can you split versus Arkansas? They should be good. Texas isn't as good under first-year head coach Sean Miller. I watched a bit of the UConn game where they were competitive against the Huskies in stores. We know Alabama's going to be great. We know Ole Miss under Chris Beard's going to be good. But Auburn, first-year coach, man, there's just a lot of things that broke in LSU's favor with this schedule. There's a lot, right? Auburn not being as good with the coaching change. Kentucky looking to be a little down. Florida's not as stacked as they were last year, obviously. They've lost 4 games. Now, they played a whale of a non-conference. But, I mean, it sets up nicely for them. Sets up nicely. So, I'll be the first to admit I've not watched a whole lot. I watched the Boston College game, and I loved it. But, Matt, dude, please just get it done, dude. Please. Win these next 3. If you win 10 of those conference games, 10, you're getting into the tournament. All right. And I think it's one of those things. How good is Missouri this year? They've been hot and cold under Dennis Gates. Let me see. They're 8-4. They've lost to Alabama. No, I got their freaking football schedule up. Now Missouri's 10-2. They've lost to Notre Dame and Kansas, which is respectable. But they've also not really played anyone else. You just don't know. You just do not know. But on our schedule, let me see. I would say Kentucky's probably still a better team than us. Arkansas's better than us. Tennessee's better than us. Alabama's better than us. But can you win some of those games? I don't know. Kentucky got beat by Gonzaga by 50 points. Yeah. That's Gonzaga. Have we played a team as good as Gonzaga in the non-conference? Yeah, Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is really good, even though they lost to Arkansas yesterday. But then again, I feel uncomfortable even saying that. I'm not Aaron Torres over here. Kentucky is 7-4 though. Their 4 losses: Louisville, at Louisville in a rivalry game, Michigan State, okay, Gonzaga, and North Carolina. All right, so every team that they've lost to has made, a Final Four in the past 5 years? Is Bruce Pearl the Lane Kiffin of men's hoops? Says Tiger Deal. Now, Bruce Pearl handed the job off to his son. But is Bruce and are they really? No, they're not alike. Bruce is way more serious than Lane, and that's a good thing for our perspective. Let's go to Murphy. And also, Bruce isn't coaching. Excuse me. Oh, so you say as a whole, women's ball better than men's because they play X's and O's. They play more X's and O balls than the men's do. Agree or disagree? I wouldn't say that's why women's basketball at the college level is better. I love both. Obviously, I like women's college basketball more than the WNBA because a lot of it is brand equity. Um, so like if you watch a team like UConn, they run a lot of sets. They're always going to play team ball, but not every team plays that way. So I still think there's still a good X's and O's component to men's college basketball. But is a women's game better? I would say like I'm more inclined to watch a neutral men's game to a neutral women's college basketball game. But I would probably choose watching like LSU versus South Carolina over watching like Duke and North Carolina, right? In the men's. So yeah, I mean, a lot of it though is LSU being good in women's and not so great in men's. But yeah, I mean, I think it just comes down to preference. Uh, I will say, as far as the women's is concerned, so Team USA, the women's basketball Team USA team, is already doing their workouts and trials and all of that. And holy crap, y'all, my heart, this was so cool. They did a 5-on-5 kind of drill for the Team USA. And look, I'll pull it up here. Let me see. And the 5 for Team USA going. Oh, look at this. Okay, yeah, look, dude, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. Okay, that's a fake photo. Huh? 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 Um, Angel Reese right here. And one. Love it. So that's Citron, number 20. She's a fun player to watch. Crap, I couldn't find the 5-on-5 on. Angel Reese. Okay, here you go. Jared wants you to scroll back up. I knew some of you saw that. It wasn't anything too crazy if you didn't see it. So, all right, so that 5-on-5 drill that you just watched, I watched that earlier and I got really happy. It was Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, and Angel Reese, the 3 women's college basketball players that defined the last 5 years of women's college basketball. And then you probably have player number 4 in Aaliyah Boston of South Carolina, and then you have Rakea Jackson in there as well. So cool. I cannot wait for them to be the face of Team USA. The youngsters. Diana Taurasi, you got 6 of them. Get out of here. Let's go to Tebow Anthro. Listen at 2. This is dedication right here. And I know who this is. Shout out to you. Shout out to your daughter, a big PHL fan. Listen at 2X to catch up. 9-game conference rant was great at high speed. Just watch Peyton Houston's 2025 highlights. Peace and love, PHL. Yeah, you're not going to get me to scroll back up on that. You're just not. If you want to see it, you could just type in Angel Reese in the search bar. All right, I want to do something totally random. I had a debate about this with one of my former teammates, Greg Pooh Williams. Okay. When I say music, all right, when I'm bringing up the topic of music, and I say the name King George, all right, I really do need everybody to participate in this in the chat. If I say King George, what do you think of? Answer in the chat right now. It'll make sense in a second. It's not a gotcha or anything like that. When I say King George, what do you think? What type of music do you think about when I say King George? Or the artist? All right, so I thought most of you were going to say George Strait. Trail Ride. Yeah, George Strait. There we go. Oh, no. Trail Ride. Okay. No. You're thinking of the same King George I am. Make sure I think it. Yeah, okay. All right. Because I thought you were referencing Amarillo by Morning. So there you go. So you're thinking of the King George I'm thinking of. So it's weird. It depends on like what you grew up listening to, right? It's, you know, King George is George Strait, right? They call him the king of country music, right? But there is a Southern soul artist named King George who is incredible. Okay. And the funny thing is, like, there's a lot of their songs have like crossover lyrics, King George Strait and King George in the R&B Southern soul world. And yeah, there's crossover. And it's funny because there's a lot of people that know one but not the other. So I just wanted to do that publicly. I'm going to bring this up to my teammate tomorrow. Yeah, well, I think Citizen King. I don't know Citizen King. Yeah, Murphy, R&B is taken a completely wild journey. Yeah, Pegasus, a lot of players did go down. So, yeah, Mahomes obviously the best. Parsons, we'll see what the Devontae Adams thing looks like. I will say the Philip Rivers story is like the coolest story in sports right now. So there you go. Wait, let me see. Citizen King. I think I know the song. I gotta play it a little bit. Yeah, I can't play the whole thing. What is it? I've seen better days. Yeah, that's a good song. I'm not listening to that song in a while. Oh yeah, Juju Watkins. We'll see how her injury recovery works. God, Tyler Shuck is just such a smart quarterback. So you mentioned in the post game presser that he willingly sold the hit at the end of that game. Really, really, really good stuff. Shout out to our top super chatters, Jared, Murph, and Tebow Anthro. I hate that YouTube changed it to where I see your usernames instead of like your actual names. But Trey, we really appreciate it. Let's go to Murphy. Fires one in here. Carter, I think we need at least a 2-year quarterback in the portal. A one and done is a waste of money. Talk to you. Is Mendoza a waste of money? You know, when Ole Miss brought in Trinidad, that was 1 year. Was that a waste of money? Diego Pavia was a 1 year. Magically got another year. Was that a waste of money for Vanderbilt last year? Get whoever's best. It's just too hard to predict the future. It's way too hard. You know, I can even make it an argument that it's better to get a quarterback in his 5th and final year because he's got to make it work. So, you know, I do think, yeah, sure, we would prefer someone to go the Jackson Dart route here with Lane, and we get 3 years. Yeah, but Murphy, I guarantee you, if Indiana wins this thing this year, uh, you know, you would be you'd be saying, damn, dude, it would have been nice to have Fernando Mendoza this year. It's still just crazy to me that Phillip Rivers played a game at 44 years of age. 44 years of age. It just blows my mind. And he almost won today. I mean, he has no juice in his arm. Probably if he were to run a 40-yard dash right now, it would probably be 5.5, which is really slow. Okay? It's just nuts to me, dude. Has no juice in his arm. Probably can't throw it 30 yards. Addison's going with Madison. Jared, what did I tell you about picking teams based on names that rhyme with yours? Burt Jones is a really nice guy, man. Carter, I understand Lacey is really good, but can't Barry be the next Lacey? He was a 5-star running back. They're different. They're very different. But yeah, Harlan Berry can for sure do everything that Kawan did this past year. Caden Durham is still a good player. He's still a good player. Oh, Jared, it's going to be brutal, dude. I'm going to have to get an actual, job. Not that I can't do this. It's just this last offseason was brutal. Brutal. Just Clemson, Clemson, Clemson. And guess what it's going to be again? Clemson, Clemson, Clemson. 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 Can I pull a wire? Hell yeah, I could pull a wire. I'm moving in with you, Mobile. Sign me up. I could do some shift work. Do PHL from the Wire Hut. All right, y'all. We'll talk to you soon. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. Tonight, Haley made her famous tacos for the first time in a while.